So I would like to welcome all of you to this lecture and discussion with Marcell Mars. And I would like to thank those of you who've joined us today on this extremely hot summer day as we are coming out of lockdown. And my name is Roseanne Gush, and I'm speaking from the IZK, but also from Aaaarg 53. So which is in Graz, Austria. And I would like to introduce Marcell Mars and also my colleagues Milita Tomic and Philip Sattler, as well as, and I would like to welcome students and everyone else who's joined us. So just to say briefly that Aaaarg 53, which is the organization hosting this event, is operated by Verein called Das Gesellschaftliche Ding. And this is an exhibiting space which aims to establish a clear division between an exhibition as a representational form, deeply rooted in colonialism and embodying imperial modes of representation, and exhibiting as a continuous open-ended process characterized by the deliberate refusal of temporal and spatial closure. As part of this exposure in flux, so our space frames works which, or currently by Ariella Aisha Atule, Nina Kolovratnik, and an increasingly growing body of student work. Just to say that we are recording this event, and if you'd like to ask a question, I think you're very welcome to speak or to raise your hands. And Marcell Mars is joining us from Italy today. He's one of the founders of Multimedia Institute and Club Mama in Zagreb. He initiated GNU GPL publishing label. I'm not sure if I'm going to get all these acronyms correct. So EgoBooBits.bits in 2000. He started Skillsharing, an organization, in 2004. And he's organizing informal meetings around for technical enthusiasts in Mama and regional hacker gatherings, such as Nothing Will Happen. Mars started his research ruling class studies at Jan van Eyck in 2011, and he continued at Academie Schloss Solitude in 2013. And since the spring of 2015, he is a PhD student at Leuphana University in the Digital Cultures Research Lab. Ruling Class Studies is a research of corporate state-of-the-art digital innovation, adaptation, and intelligence. And it looks closely at Google, Amazon, Facebook, and eBay. And I think, yeah, Marcell, you'll go into more detail in regards to your research now. So I give you the screen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I would like to open this session by reflecting a bit on a format in which I will present no Microsoft involved. I know it's a nerdy joke, but never mind. So I love watching playthroughs. Playthrough, for the few who don't know, is the act or a recording of playing a game from start to finish. So you watch how someone else gets through the game. And I love it. There's a more specific format in the playthrough universe, and it is called Let's Play. For Let's Play, please let me go and I'll read it from Wikipedia. A Let's Play is a video or screenshots accompanied by text documenting the playthrough of a video game, usually including commentary or camera view of the gamer's face. A Let's Play differs from video game walkthrough or strategy guide by focusing on an individual subjective experience with the game, often with humorous, irreverent, or critical commentary from the gamer, rather than being an objective source of information on how to progress through the game. I was invited to give a presentation talk here, so I feel obliged to justify this beginning with more than just sharing an anecdotal joys of life. To finish, or even just to play a computer or any other game, is an endeavor into complexity, and moving step by step or move after move is one of the best ways to share an insight into a complex world where one should move from zero to somewhere else. In chess, that's called analysis. So naming what we do in talks like this one as analysis is probably more appropriate, but remember, I love watching playthroughs. Some years ago, I realized that Sebastian Ludgert and Jan Gerber, when they would present their work on Pandora, were very much playing movies from the dataset through the Pandora idiosyncratic features, a playthrough, no? For example, here's the search query against the 17,585 movie datasets for the text phone rings in subtitles. I'll just show you that. Sorted from the oldest to the latest movie in the movie database. Only one single query, and that's enough of materials and insights for the whole book in media theory or media archaeology, German scholarship style if you want. So, for example, 1945, you can just play how the cut in the movie looks like with the phone ringing in the background. And that's their story narrated through the software they wrote, but also the playthrough of a movie database they curated and collected. I heard for the term terabyte sometime before 2005, but I had no clue at the time what's the terabyte. Kind of the same how I feel today about the petabyte. I know that's 1,000 terabytes, and I know what is a terabyte or what's dozen of terabytes, but I have to say no one did the playthrough of a petabyte for me, so I still don't know what's a petabyte. I remember Jan and Sebastian came to our culture center Mama in Zagreb presenting pirate cinema. I think that was sometime around 2005 or 2006. They came with a couple of hard disks and we wanted to have a copy of that. So we had to buy more than a terabyte of disks. And that's how I learned what the terabyte is. I was a megabyte person and they were a terabyte people. Slowly I was catching up, and together with many others today, I'm a terabyte person too. Jan and Sebastian might be a petabyte people now, but they still didn't do a playthrough of the petabyte. So I stay where I am for now. I'm a terabyte person. They run pirate cinema for more than 16 years now. And around 2007, they started to develop Pandora so they can organize their collection, run pirate cinema. But for me, the most important aspect was, and it is still, that they can tell their story as a playthrough of Pandora. So just going back to this screenshot, to this screen from their website, I can just do like country, and you can see here United States is like 132, and now I can just see all of the phone rings from the oldest to the newest, only for the United States, and then I can see that in Rosalie. There's like a 3 scenes and all of these hard plug into the same motherboard, or just simply your computer or mobile phone. And for that, I feel the most comfortable when I do play through, if you want a chess metaphor again, a close analysis of a software other people wrote, or more often in my own presentation, software I wrote. And that's what I will do here. I'll do a playthrough of a software I wrote and use with my comrades. The Pirate Cinema and Pandora playthroughs were great also because the demo shows the movie you want to see, or at least movies Jan and Sebastian are passionate about. Those are the movies they have chosen because they like them, they love them, they curated the collection. When you see their playthrough, you are either pleased with the elegance of their media theoretical insights, or you are pleased with the desire that the clips of the movies you're just watching with them could sit on your hard disk. And you know it could, because that's the Pirate Cinema collection. It is supposed to be shared. It is supposed to be yours too. I know whenever I would talk about shadow libraries and try to make my points by playing through the Let's Share Books plugin, which I wrote, or the features shown at the Memory of the World Library, or the projects I respect and love, such as Library Genesis, Alexandra Elbakian's Science Hub, Dushan Barak Monoskop, Sean Dockeray Aaaarg, or Kenneth Goldsmith UbuWeb, there would be someone in the audience extremely enthusiastic, thanking me for the discovery of such a treasure, a jackpot for them. Or they would just ask me to give them the URL of those projects and then quickly run away from me, obviously, to go and download stuff they know they want and which is just waiting for them there on these URLs. I still do these playthroughs, lectures, presentations, preachings, because I also had less often, of course, but still enough of times the feedback from the audience full of resonance with what I would consider the elegant insights about the complex matter I talk about. The rarest event of all, it happened only a few times in the decades, was when few from the audience would join our crew and start to sail, curate, and share with us. I mean, share with us as in share with you too, but your mileage may vary. Okay, back to the topic. I announced this talk as distributed resources versus distributed tech. But if not for the pun in the title, I could probably be more precise if I went with shared resources versus distributed tech. Or even pun included, shared resources versus distributed resources. My main intervention is to claim that we are better off if we analyze these distributed or analyze the distributed web technologies by their outcomes, as in what are the shared resources we enjoy today and what are the technologies behind that. And here's a spoiler hidden at the end of the introduction part. By that criteria, we are better off with the simplest and oldest technologies used by people who care and share than any bloody blockchain, fungible, which comes with a lot of promises about, so we care and want to share with others. Most of the distributed tech tries to address the trust, as we don't trust each other. We, people who care and share, but we trust each other and we know each other. And when we don't know each other, we get to know each other. We do coffees, email, beer, chat, forum, Twitter, hiking. Okay, the hiking no one does, but you get the point. So sometimes we just need to trust the technology we use so we know our friend is actually our friend, so that we are talking to our friend, not some phishing scam bot or over-enthusiastic intelligence service copyright soldier misrepresenting our friend. And today there is plenty of trusted technology providing that level of security, and they are pretty much built into our web browser, for example, through HTTPS. And on top of addressing trust, which in most communities is already solved by the nature of being a community, their proposed chains usually try to introduce the cryptocurrency rewards for the ones who would share more. And that's a horrible idea. There's decades of scientific research proving that, for example, introducing monetary reward to the blood donations is actually ruining the system it tries to improve. And I know sharing books is not donating, but still I feel the chains in of home when they try to find their nails coming with their big hammers. So this would be the end of a spoiler hidden at the end of the very long introduction. It's like 12 minutes, I think now. So if the spoiler is your thing, if that's what you are looking for, the same way the playthrough is my thing, this is probably a very good moment to move from this video stream to something more interesting. And as I can see, there are like not many people, so I will really notice if you do that. So yeah, you're doing that with your own kind of freedom and consequences. Okay, so I'll talk even more before I play with some playthroughs, because I start to play So by doing this, talking too much and not doing the playthroughs, I would probably never get any audience on Twitch. It's another nerdy joke, but I hope that you got it. So internet itself is the mother of all internet hypes. During the 90s, still just bunch of kilobytes, people nowhere close to a billion of people or billions of people as today, we witnessed a lot of promises coming from the internet, a lot of hype. I don't have enough of time to list them here, but I would like to read an excerpt from the funny but still very relevant and insightful take by Richard Barbrook in Cyber Communism, How the Americans Are Superseding Capitalism in Cyberspace. And it was sent to NetTime in on September 6th of 1999. And he finishes his essay by saying, although the Soviet Union has long disappeared, the proponents of the Californian ideology are still appropriating the theoretical legacy of Stalinist communism. And then Richard Barbrook pairs up Stalinist vanguard party with Wired's Gujarati, the 5-year plan with the new paradigm, boy meets tractor with nerd meets internet, Soviet democracy with electronic town halls, society as a factory with society as hive, new Soviet man with posthumans, and things like that. So NetTime people were proverbial skeptics, but still most of the people already connecting at the time wanted to understand more on what are the underlying principles and technologies behind internet. Some would learn at least a little bit of HTML, and some would lose their mind in trying to understand the TCP/IP protocol. It seemed that the future which internet brings could go wrong, but still understanding and advocating for certain original aspects of the internet would help us save the internet from its major failures. A lot of people learned the concepts such as separation of concerns, general purposeness, or generativity, but probably the most prominent one was end-to-end principle. End-to-end argument was developed in the 50s by system analysis, working on the problem of writing and reading large files on flaky tape drives, as they would call it. They were very much concerned with ever-happening failures of both hardware and software of the time. End-to-end principle was articulated in the 80s, which resulted in a so-called dumb network architecture, where the processing of all the encapsulated packet switching traffic is purposefully delayed, so that unwrapping only happens once it reaches the end node. That's why it's called end-to-end. Having all the intelligence shifted to the end nodes, and at the same time having a distributed network where routing decisions are based on simple logic, providing the capacity for network to self-heal, to self-kind of organize and self-heal, and re-establish the delivery of packets, even when conditions are unstable or components used to construct the network are unreliable, which was happening as much as it was in the 60s when they noticed that with the fakey tapes, it's always the same. Technology by default doesn't work. 30 years later, a group of prominent legal scholars affiliated mostly with Berkman Klein Internet Center for Internet and Society at Harvard would make the end-to-end principle the foundation of their arguments. Lawrence Lessig writes about the internet as a vehicle of competition and innovation, which empowers users. Benkler on commons-based peer production, lowering global copying costs close to zero and acting as the polar opposite of the logic of control. Zittrain writes about end-to-end principle together with general purpose computer as a battle cry for internet freedom. And famously, as the main argument in advocacy and struggle for net neutrality, Tim Wu made end-to-end principle as one of the main arguments of the net neutrality. Lessig, Benkler, and to some degree, Zittrain supported with their writings a Creative Commons movement, which for at least a couple of years in the 2000s gave us all, maybe with an exception of Richard Barbrook and few likes at NetTime, but they gave us all a hope that authors, creators, lawyers, and venture capital will change the internet into the humongous landscape of shared resources because the underlying principles of internet, packet switching TCP/IP protocol designed as end-to-end system would make it resilient against the failure we ended up with only a couple of years later. the most impressive intervention into the world of policies and politics on technology is, in my opinion, Tim Wu's articulation of net neutrality. No one actually, I don't know of many examples or any example where the conceptual, the understanding of what's there and then articulating that had such a strong consequences. So if we only could do that for shared resources, that would be great, but we didn't. So Obama administration, which was very much on net neutrality, never really mentioned shared resources. So I would like to here to show you some of the resources which are shared, which are fairly distributed and even resilient to a certain degree, but end-to-end principle underlying that wouldn't help much if not for the people who care, who share, and who are brave enough to stand disobedient in front of the legal trouble. And I'll do my tour here with a reverse timeline, starting with the latest one. Yeah, so this is Science Hub. And Science Hub is providing us okay, I will admit one more person. Science Hub is allowing the whole world with like more than 90 million articles today. And what you should do is just to do DOI or like PMID or just URL of the journal article you want. When you click, it's there, it's downloaded. If it was not there, and is served to you from the saved directory with the saved journal articles if it was already there. So I just did that, and now I can just like download that. I don't know if you can see that, but it doesn't really matter. So I can download it on my computer. In that sense, it's the shared resource. It's fairly distributed because most of the scientists in the world are using this. And in that sense, it's resilient. It's now like for more than almost like 10 years that it
Marcell, sorry, Marcell, would you like to share your screen or to show this, or if you would like?
Shared. No, I have it shared.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
What are the other people? Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It's
good,
just me.
Good.
Sorry, like just me.
Okay, cool. So you were watching my face. That was not that interesting.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
No, but I didn't share that much so far. Anyway, so I just showed how you can use Science Hub. And what I would like to say here is that this is absolutely amazing project, which science today couldn't survive without. And when we look into the technology which is behind that, there is internet, there is end-to-end principle of the original or these original aspects of the internet as it is. But this is one of the rare projects which is providing us that. So what I'm trying to do here is like to do a little bit of a close analysis of what's there, what's the technology behind. There is not much. Alexander Elbakian was saying that was pretty much like a PHP script she wrote in 2014, and what she was adding more and more was just the usernames and passwords which people would share. So people who care would share the access which they got by being in the institution or whatever the way how they get these like credentials. They would share it with Alexander Elbakian, and we just get it. And in many ways, the user interface which we use at Science Hub is just amazing. No, like it's much easier than any of the paywall, or even when you're inside of the university. They are like it's so simple. It's easy. The technology is simple. But the backbone of that is people who share their access. And Alexandra Elbakian, who's brave enough and go forward and advocate, what is this? In the last interview, she said, this is the communist project. This is how we communists do it, and it works. So I will just show you like another one, which is by the timeline as I proposed, is Memory of the World. It's the project I I wrote. Let me just see how much time I have. So I'm like around like 23 minutes. That's okay. Memory of the World is imagined as a workflow for librarians, and here you can see like a number of librarians who are following, who are like using that software. So what they do is that they go online, they find something they like, they find something which is important for them, they put it in a Calibre, which is the books management software, and then there is a plugin, and these days there is a tool which is called, it used to be the plugin in Calibre, but these days it's the tool called Aaaarg, which would just make what they prepared in Calibre into the standalone offline ready. You can just like put it on your USB disk, which looks like this. Like, so you as a librarian, you just prepare the library for the future distribution. Or you also can add it to this aggregated website where you can see there is like maybe like 20 now, maybe 18, I don't know, of the librarians who are aggregated together. And that's what we were saying, that's our vision, what we try to do with the libraries. So our idea was in 2012, when we started with the project, our idea was like, we feel that in 2012, the public library as an institution could be something where librarians take care of the books, they take care of the catalog, but librarians take care of a catalog, and they allow people to access that catalog the librarians prepared, and that's public library. It's very simple, but we got many times in trouble, and many public libraries as institutions were facing a huge legal troubles if they would provide what they were supposed to do. And the idea of the public library kind of like was followed by the enthusiasm and the vision which people had after they did the bourgeois revolution, in which they felt that all people are equal. So people are equal, probably if they have like most of the freedoms like everyone else, but somehow the access to knowledge was the precondition, because you also need to learn about your freedoms, you need to learn about the rights and things like that. So public libraries was in that sense foundational idea, foundational institution, which was supposed to provide the ground on which we can build a society where all people are equal. And of course, at the time, not all people was very kind of reduced to the ones who were leading that, the bourgeoisie. They wouldn't see people who are not owners, who don't have any property as people, so they wouldn't be all there and equal. The women were not there, people of color. So there was a lot of struggles which were following up on that. But the basic idea was that we would have the institution providing knowledge, providing access to knowledge for people, so they can actually reach the status where we are all equal, that we have these freedoms. So another one is a library genesis. And just to say in the technology, again, it's a simple one. There is no distributed, as in distributed, like there is no like a blockchain, there is no like any, it's a simple protocol, it's a simple workflow behind the behind Memory of the World, which provides for librarians to prepare their collections after they put them in a Calibre, so that they can like push it further, they can share it with the others, and they can make it online with other librarians who share the vision, so then people can access that. And things like this, like it's just like let's say like the web app where you can like search for the books when you are looking for the books. Library Genesis is another one, and that's how we started in 2012. It was like one in a history in that like a piracy legacy, which so they appeared, even they were existing for like 10 years or something. So they appeared in 2012 after Gigapedia was shut down by the legal process. And again, it's like a PHP with a database. People can upload, nothing fancy, really. Something which you could do pretty much in like 1999, like a database-driven CGI script kind of backup technology. But what they did is they also did a gesture where they started to share their whole collection through BitTorrent. So everything they have, like 1 million of books, 2 million of books, and I think that these days they are kind of like, they reach more than 3 million of books. So what they allowed is that you can go, of course, on this website and do like one by one. You search for a book, you search for the author, something like that, and then you download the book. But if you care about the libraries, if you're like that kind of person in that sense, you can also just go and find the whole collection in torrent files. So this is like thousands of torrent files, which you can again download all, and then you just like start your torrent client, and then after like weeks or months of downloading, you can have everything they have. And in the future, you can just like synchronize. You can just download the new torrents, and you will have everything they have. And many did. So this is the example, again, of very simple technology, which provided us shared resources where the joining the crowd, the crew, which will care about that, is very easy. You just need to have big enough drive. This is still terabytes, people. Let me tell you that. It's maybe like 30 terabytes at the moment, and that's how you join. Another one which is very interesting is Aaaarg, which started sometime around like 2005 or 6. And as you can see, there is like a quite big community, and that community just uploads the books. They upload the books to Aaaarg, and there is a little bit of metadata you need to provide in order to upload it. And after that, it's there. And other people will just come and download it. And then you can also, you can just put things together. You can put topically, genealogy of bibliography has only like 3, let me see something which more, yeah. Aboriginal, Indigenous, First Nation theories and politics has like 374 titles in its collection. So this is how and you can see how many people follow here. So this is again a very simple. It's like it started as a PHP script, and now it's like Python database. People just make their accounts and they share. And in some way, for example, when you compare Aaaarg and Memory of the World asks for a little bit more work in order to call yourself librarian than what would be the act of uploading on Aaaarg. But at the same time, Aaaarg was, because of that, was like successful in rather like a bigger community. I would say like tens of thousands of people at a time, more than 100,000 people through all of that time, but they're not active. So some would just like forget about it, or they would just come back when they need something. And I think that in its peak, it's when there is like a end of the semester when people have to write about, and that's when Aaaarg shines. Another one is coming from another time, that was 2004, which was built by mostly by Dusan Barok, and it reflects the kind of the vision and hope of the time, which is based on wiki. So it's just like Wikipedia, no? So you can make your own account. You can go and edit any of the pages, but the difference is that there is a little bit more of a civil disobedience here than on Wikipedia. On Wikipedia, they try to actually make sure that anything there, that no one would complain about the copyright. Here, it's much more flexible. Also, it is much more, in many areas, architecture is especially good, a good example. Here is that's what I like about Dusan's work. We did the exhibition in Novi Sad, and then we just like printed, it was like 12 12 meters long scroll of the architecture page. And of course, it is then back. It is like the photo is attached back to that page, and there is plenty of material here. I really like. If you don't know, I really recommend that you go there. So then they're like art. The one on art, and again, it's kind of like, it's like Wikipedia, but a very nice touch of someone who's writing that. So it's again, it's almost like a playthrough of what I would like to present about a certain topic. It started as a wiki, which would cover avant-garde art and neo-avant-garde, but more focused on like Eastern Europe, or like that kind of like non-Western kind of part of the world. Now it's kind of covering more of all kind, but it still has that flavor. And then there is UbuWeb, and UbuWeb started in 1996. And UbuWeb is mostly, almost like fully done by Kenneth Goldsmith. And as he famously say, he just sits every day, every evening with like a bottle of whiskey, and he just adds things he likes. And after like 25 years, this is the year of 25th year of existence. This is the website. So I would like to show you. It's again, it's like it started, and it still kind of struggles with some of the legal troubles and things like that. But it started in the 90s, the middle 90s, when that hype, as I told you, was like quite high. So it kind of really reflects in the imaginary. It reflects what internet could be, and what internet of the 1996 or 1999 or whatever could be. And it still reflects that. And also technologically, it reflects that. You should know that. I'll just open that. This is HTML, and every page is just done by Kenneth Goldsmith in the very, like a simple plain text editor. There is no fancy technology, there is no database, there is nothing. He just do like copy paste mostly of things which he knows it worked for a page in 1999 or something. That's how he does it. And that's why we could do for the 20th birthday, and it was like obviously 5 years ago. That's what we could do at the time. So we did mirrors. So the mirror is the way where you just go and clone everything what is there on the website, for example. So that's what we call mirror. So you are like mirroring something. And we love Ubu, no? For the obvious reasons. And then 20 years later, you know that a lot of people love it. And for the 20 years, it's a longevity which really asks for a lot of respect. There are very few things which kind of last for like 20 years. And in that sense, we were able to do such a gesture, to mirror in solidarity, because Ubu was that simple. It was very easy to kind of like download everything. We had to do a few things where not all of the links were relative. So we would like do a few scripts which would kind of prepare it so that it can work on another domain than on Ubu. But it was like very little work in order to make it fully work. So it is in that sense saved. So it didn't disappear. Even if Kenneth just disappeared from the world, that website will stay for a very long time. And this is the resource which many people who care, they would just do something about it. They would just have it on their website. So in that sense, it's very well distributed, probably in fragments. But what we try to do is like, we wanted to show that you can also, 20 years later, you can also like run it in all of its glory. So I'll just read it what was in the beginning in this introduction. I will just like read a few things which we wrote for that letter. So In a world of money-crazed startups and surveillance capitalism, copyright madness and abuse, Ubu represents an island of culture. It shows what a single person with dedication and focus can achieve. There are lessons to be drawn from this. So first, keep it simple and avoid constant technology updates. Ubu is plain HTML, written in a text editor. Second, even a website should function offline. One should be able to take the hard disk and run. Avoid the cloud, computers of people you don't know and who don't care about you. The third, don't ask for permission. You would have to wait forever, turning yourself into an accountant and a lawyer. Fourth, don't promise anything. Do it the way you like it. Fifth, you don't need search engines. Rely on word of mouth and direct linking to slowly build your public. You don't need complicated protocols, digital currencies, or other proxies. You need people who care. Sixth, everything is temporary. Even after 20 years, servers crash, disks die, life changes, and shit happens. Care and redundancy is the only path to longevity. Care and redundancy is the reason why we decided to run mirrors. We care and we want this resource to exist. The first 4 points are the reason why we could do it fairly easily. These points were mostly about the technology. Ubu is now located in US, Mexico, Iceland, and Switzerland. The Iceland Mirror is part of a culture activist community. The Swiss Mirror is run by a major art school. None of these matters, as long as ubu.com runs fine. But should shit happen, this multiplicity of locations and institutions might come in handy. We will see. Find your Ubu. It's time to mirror each other in solidarity. So this is where I would like to, let me see how much time I have. So I'm now at the 40 minutes, which I promised I will do as something of my presentation. So I would like to stop here and ask for your questions. And if I will have a chance, I will just also do a little bit of presentation what I work at the moment. So I will just show you how I followed these 6 points, how I followed in the new things which I was developing. And yeah, but I would like to hear from you if there is any question.
Thank you so much, Marcell. Also, really for going through these tools that I personally could not have lived without, actually. And so I think it's really important to share them. So I would like to ask if anyone would like to ask a question from our group. Or otherwise, I would, be really interested in hearing more about the pirate care syllabus. Is that something that perhaps you would like to elaborate on?
Sorry, can you repeat?
I would love to hear more about the pirate care syllabus. Is that something that you're able? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you're able to elaborate on?
I'll try to give you like a little bit of, if there is no question, I think that I can do it in like 10 minutes.
Sure, yeah.
So I would like to basically tell you the technical side of what we were doing with a little bit of a context which helps understanding what was happening there. But then what I like here is that I kind of like provided you kind of historical and other kind of way to look into the infrastructures and what do we need and in which way, what are the technologies or what are the criteria, how we should look into these kind of things, so then that we know, I don't know, what's good, what's not, and how do we proceed. So for pirate care, it's kind of one of the projects which is I'm super happy to kind of introduce people, because it's very easy and simple in today's kind of world. No, there are like pirate care practices which are practicing what I see as something which would help us get back or build the new society, like just the regular society. But these practices are in trouble because where we are at this moment, the world just doesn't let us live in that society and do that. So if you want to like save lives in Mediterranean Sea, you get in trouble. If you want to help people get access to medicine, to reproductive rights, you get in trouble because these groups are in minority. If you want to share files, there is a problem. If you want to like provide people with a housing, with a place to live, because they need to live somewhere, and you know that there are resources for that, then you again get in trouble. So that was kind of the premise. That was like the idea, what we want to do. So Valerio Graziano came up with the name, with a good kind of introduction and theoretical explanation, articulation. So together with Tommy Medak and myself, we started to think, how do we address that? And what we knew is that we didn't want to kind of just do advocating. We didn't want to promise what we are not able to kind of achieve. So for example, one of the ways to do that would be like, hey, we want to make more people join these practices. No, we can't do that. It's very hard. But sometimes the good news is that very few people can do actually a good job in doing some of these things. But also like joining them is something which is much more complicated than just like making a project, inviting people. So anyway, we ended up with the idea that we want to do a syllabus. So the syllabus would be something we write together with people with the experience of doing something like pirate care. And then we write it in such a way that we want people to learn together from that. And our idea was that it's syllabus. So for syllabus, we organized that as a publication or as some kind of publishing project together with like some kind of pedagogical. So we imagine that as something we write, and then we invite people, and at some place we just start to kind of learn together from what was written before. So we had syllabus which had topics, and these topics would go from the migration, like criminalization of solidarity and sea rescue as care, housing struggles, then like psychosocial autonomy would be more like of the access and the way how we approach the mental health and other health issues, trans-hug feminism, hormones, toxicity, and body sovereignties would be again like that area of trans-hug feminism, which deals with a lot of like, especially in the last like a couple of decades, a lot of struggles which were happening around like just the basic kind of understanding and then access to the health systems and things like that. Then we also have like politics in piracy. That's what I'm coming from. So then I'll just show you in our example, like, then we said like, okay, when we have these topics, so what do we want to write? So we said like, there will be sessions. So the session would be a little document which tries to describe, which tries to articulate what the group would do together when they gather together. So just going back to these like technological things which I showed you, what I wanted as a lead developer, what I wanted to do is like, I wanted really to make it also as some kind of a follow-up on what we do with the libraries. So there is a very good integration of the library which comes with the syllabus. So for example, here you can see references, and then when I click on that, you go like straight to that reference in the library, and then you can see that in the library there are like 500 or 456 books. And as you can see here, it's kind of like the reference is like kind of like Chicago manual style reference. And I'll just show you how that look like in terms of like writing it. So when you go to the underscore preview in a URL, you get into the admin website, and then on any page, you can just click edit this. If you ever like used Wikipedia. Just a second, I'm not logged in. I need like a few seconds here. So you can see that now I'm just getting into the editing page, and here you can see references. It's the same like here, and then instead of like doing all of that text, you can see that there is like an ID. So this is the syntax you can use, and then if you like let this empty, not like any text inside, then it will just expand itself into that like a citation kind of style thing. So, and then what was also interesting is that we also did this, which would like print out into, well, you can see here how it's calculating. So it at any given moment, it will just like make a PDF out of the website, out of what's written there from that system. So that's how you get like a rather kind of well-paginated, well-designed PDF. And then you can also find it here inside of the library. So I'll just show you how it looks like. So this is the preview which you get. And then when you click on print, it has like around like 350, let me see, what's that? 300 pages. So here it's like a PDF. I just opened the PDF, and then the links are still kind of preserved and things like that. So the idea was that following this letter, that this website should work offline, should be easy kind of to edit, should be kind of something which addresses the collective writing, but then also like which should kind of be part of that experimental publishing. So it also has a PDF. So you can put that, you can print that PDF, you can put the whole website and the library on a USB disk, and you can just go somewhere where there is no internet, and everything will just work. Of course, printed 300 printed publication can work without the internet connection, but then also I made sure that everything else worked just like that. So later on, I did a kind of general, like I did something which is now known as send points. And then I added a number of things there. So you can change, it doesn't have to be syllabus, topic, and session. It can be curriculum, topics, and experiments, for example. And this is just a machine listening project, which is curriculum on machines which are listening us. So for them, as they invited a bunch of artists and theorists, so for them, the session was not that good. So they just went with the experiment. So the way how they support the topic, which supports the overall kind of idea of a curriculum, would be that you write a number of experiments. So when someone gets into that curriculum, they will experiment with these descriptions, and that's how they will build their knowledge about the machine listening. And the last thing which I want to show you is like a journal, which is scientific journal. So again, it's a triadic structure. It's like three things, which were the umbrella one. I usually say like you can imagine it as a ship having decks, and then decks having cabins. No? So in this particular case, the journal is a ship, and it's called the Ottawa Journal of Nubian Studies. And then at the moment, it has only the 7th issue for that journal. And then it's just a journal, no? And that journal has, and that's probably like one of the novelties here, the journal has like 186 references. So it could be that it's maybe the only one, but I don't know. The scientific journal, which provides you with all of the references in its full glory. Now, like if the reference came from the book, you get the full book in the article. So out of 5 articles, which you can see here, you can see that that they have like 186 libraries. Still, you can put it on a USB disk And it just went into the distribution circulation of the scientific journals. And I'm like showing you the PDF. So PDF again has all of the pagination. When you go, it has abstract keywords, the pages. Then you can go to the page of the author, and then it says if the author, where it's mentioned, this author only wrote one article, so it says mentioned in this. So that's where we ended up with. So for me, this project is following up on the library work. So we try to make a library as a kind of central or the base on which we can build and articulate much more. And then to make the publishing process or the writing, collective writing process more of articulating what could come from that library. And at the same time, just to go back to this letter, it should be resilient. It should be in some way a technology we can rely on. We can actually rely on in like 20 years from now. And I hope I did a good decisions for that. Just the same what Kenneth did with the Ubu. So there is some complexity here in terms of technology, but it tries to be as simple as possible, especially in its outcomes. So PDF website, which works from USB disk, and the library, which is well integrated, which still kind of works as this is the 1999 or even like earlier than that. So I'll stop here. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I have a question. Okay. So you said with this, I'm just really interested in how you put this syllabus together. And so you said you worked with people who were engaged in pirate care, and in the pirate care, like all of the different aspects of pirate care, I mean, everything you include in pirate care is really different. Like, I can't remember everything that you included in the text, but there were various kind of examples of what pirate care could be. And I thought this was really interesting because it is like engaging those who are involved in this kind of act, or in this that they, and also it's like assuming that they would have the sharpest knowledge in terms of creating the syllabus of the kind of like contradictions that are producing the crises today. And I'm wondering if you could say, like, if you have anything to say about the concept of unlearning, because that's our semester theme at the ITK. Unlearning, like the concept of unlearning. So this is something that we are kind of engaging with. And I'm wondering if you have anything, as someone kind of really engaging in these ideas of pirate care, and then in creating these platforms and maintaining them, and creating syllabi, or creating a kind of like pirate infrastructure for unlearning. Like, I'm just wondering if you have anything to say about this, or if this concept is interesting to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the first one and the practitioners, and how did we do the pirate care in that sense. So I would say that for me, I'm a practitioner and I try to intervene into the world. And what I learned is that I can intervene by doing practicing, no? So, and that's what I wanted to make as a point, the playthrough, no? Like, so I write software in order to provide a certain kind of imaginary, because otherwise if I write, it's not that convincing. And I also get for free that something can be used more than when you like write, in that sense. I'm like kind of making a joke, but that was all like, that was my perspective on that. And when I worked with Tommy, Tommy is like amazing collaborator, amazing thinker. So I think that he adapts to so many different kind of like setups and ambience. So we really like work. So when we do Memory of the World, I think that one of the aspects of his work is that he's a practitioner. No? So then together, Tommy and myself, that's what we do. We intervene. We treat our practice as some kind of like a possibility, as some kind of like a thing which we can do, which we can intervene into. So we just build these stories around that, and try to say like abolish intellectual property, make a public library, you know, something like that. So in that sense, for us, the practice and like knowledge being produced in the practice is something which is very, I would say, like inherent to us. Tommy also does other things. So he is not, I wouldn't ever reduce him only to a practice. He's a great theorist. I'm not. So he does, but when we work together, he adapts in working with me. So Valeria had, as a theorist, she always tried to kind of like bring that kind of process in which you as a theorist recognize what's already there, and then you try to, but not necessarily as ethnology or kind of anthropologist, but it's more than that. It's kind of like build theory together from the practice, and that's how she shapes her work as a theorist, but also a practitioner. So in that sense, when we started to collaborate, that was, let's say, like something which you would expect if you would like put these ingredients together. So in that sense, that was that I think that we came up with a methodology, and then everything just followed that, and that's how we were doing that, and that's how we tried to do that. And of course, we learned through that process. Some of the things we didn't work, some of the things did work, and then I also tried to develop technologies which would address what worked and would try to improve the things which didn't, things like that. So that's kind of the idea. And then the question of unlearning, I'm not familiar with the body of theory there, so I can be very kind of stupid or not and try to say like unlearning is where you just unlearn what you already learned, and then hoping that unlearning will be also process of learning, and maybe learning something else which will replace the, you know, like things like, so it's a very basic like linguistic reading of that. But I remember another kind of a keyword, I would say, which I was introduced to, and which was called non-knowledge. No? So it seems to me that that's probably like maybe like of a similar kind of flavor. And I must say that I didn't get that. It was for me like something which tries to be as elusive as possible, and then I just lose it because it's elusive. So if you can like give me a little bit more, I can try to reflect on that. And then maybe I can recognize that maybe we already do something which fits there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I suppose that, sorry, I suppose that Roseanne will maybe want to say something, but I just wanted to make an intervention and ask how this new project, let's say, differs from from any other kind of project that is being used in order to conceive and to produce a syllabus. You know, all these apps and programs that are existing at the moment, and that most of the scholars are using. So, what is for you the basic difference between private care in the context of syllabus? What did I say? Private care. Nice. I like it. Okay. How this, let's say, how private care in the context of like a production of a syllabus and the way you explained it differs actually from any other. Can you just point this out, and then maybe we can go back to unlearning the concept of unlearning, and actually try to think out of this very concrete, let's say, a difference or topic.
So there are like a couple of layers here, I would say. So one is that, again, with Memory of the World, what we try to do in the field of like, let's say like intellectual property, we tried, so there is this letter too, which was a year before the UBU one. So we tried to actually, it's called Custodians.online letter, no? So we try to say that with the example of the Little Prince, so that you need to care about something, you have to be of some use for some, let's say, property, in order to have some kind of connection. So that in that sense, that if you are not of use, if you don't care about that, you cannot be like in Little Prince, the businessman who just counts them in order to sell them, something like that. And we felt that it's a powerful kind of idea on which you can build more. So also what we try to say is that we should recognize some of the division of labor and some of the non-recognized labor behind, and in that sense that the librarians are the ones who are also like making that happen, so that librarians are also like bringing something which is the new kind of reading. I don't know, Franco Moretti would say like a distance reading, no? So that you basically don't go into close reading, but you would like stay at some distance in that sense and read it through the whatever user interface, maybe some like algorithms and then things like that. So we try to intervene with that. I think that with what we do with Sendpoints and what we did with the Pirate Care is that we also try to, in that sense, bring more of the roles, no? The roles or like the labor which stands or which is underlying any authorship, any articulation which is like authorship. So I feel that authorship, usually when you ask people what is the problem there, they would say like, oh, we need more authors. So there's co-authors, no? So that you add more authors to the one individual one, and that's how we go there. And we try to say that there is more to that, that you need like editors, you need readers in that sense, you need like lectors, you need like programmers, you know. So in that sense, we try to basically do that kind of imaginary where the collective work is something which is happening there, no? So that's how we try to build. And then going back to what you said with the Pirate Care then is that we also try to make that context a little bit wider, so that and that's the name syllabus then, because it resonates, it has ambition to be like part of the university, not like precisely, but just in terms of like what is the meaning of like what is the format. You will mostly find it in like university. So in that sense, it is also the intervention where the knowledge is not produced, but also then controlled by only people who are employed by that institution, but also that in some way that we try to build these connections for a longer term, so then that we can negotiate about that knowledge with the institutions in a better way. You know, like we don't have like in that sense the illusions that will ever be without the struggle and the conflict. But we like to introduce the ground for that conflict and for the struggle as much as possible. So I think that that's what we are doing with Pirate Care, and that's what we are trying to introduce with the Sendpoints. That said, I think that Sendpoints probably at some moment will be also used by projects which will not try to challenge much, no? But at this moment it does. And I think that just like libraries, so for example, Nubian Studies Journal, all of these items in the library, they are not negotiated for the copyright. So it's already there, no? So you kind of made a media object which brings the conflict there, which brings the ground for the struggle. So I think that that's what we are trying to kind of what we are trying to do. And then there is the technological side of that, and of course there is political and social. But I would say that probably Tommy and Valeria would better kind of articulate that social part, I would say, and I kind of try to stand for the technical one, and that's where I spend most of my time, and I just want to like do that for as long as possible. I love programming.
Yeah, Marcel. So this is kind of really interesting, because if we think of the public library and the memory of the world, you know, as a project that has a free access to the sources, to the knowledge that is being produced, also on academic level, but now opening this for all, this is some kind of another perspective, a perspective of those who are producing knowledge. So who has the right actually for a knowledge production? So are these just those who are, you know, in the academic world using syllabus as a, but how do we then also have this success while producing? And in this sense, it is very close to this concept of unlearning that we are introducing. And this is the reason also we invited you to discuss this from this point of view, as actually this is also in a conflict and in a dialogue also at the same time with the hegemonic discourse that tries that from your position, and that what we understand under unlearning is to produce another kind of discourse that will confront probably this hegemonic, and in the same moment, because discourse is not just about, you know, talk, speech, and you know, it is also about producing relations, and that this also produces then new relations. So I'm just thinking to bring this in connection with unlearning, because the whole idea of unlearning is to produce other kind of other approach, and the focus of that is part of the of a production of different social relations that are then also changing a society that is not, that are not hegemonic, you know, that are not part of the let's say patriarchal, patrilinear, and also let's say imperial side, and for that reason also hegemonical. So in this sense, and I'm really happy to understand now through this through your speech now, through your talk or presentation, that your approach is now coming from another side, not just how to reach these sources, but also how to produce knowledge when we are not a knowledge to produce it, you know, from the side of the university, etc., from the side of those who are in possession of knowledge production. And then you're very close to this, because you were mentioning non-knowledge, which is then, you know, about Foucault, who introduced subjugated knowledge, disjunct knowledge, discarded knowledge, or no-knowledge, and asks actually, who are those who have right to produce and to know, you know? Are there just those who are experts, you know, etc.? So I think this is a really like an interesting project. As we would wish, I mean, I also would wish to learn more about this practice of a production of a syllabus, and actually, so I don't know how others are feeling about this, but if there are some questions around this, I would be happy to, if you would ask. So I'm inviting everybody who still has, because I was talking to Marcel, like also individually about this, and I still couldn't grasp enough, you know, what is it about? And maybe now it was a kind of short time to understand how this program works. But it would, if there are some questions, please feel free to ask.
I would just like, yeah, I would just like to express how happy I am about this journal of Nubian studies that you just showed, because in a way I'm from Sudan. I'm very interested in the history of the northern Sudan, and this is like a treasure for me, you know. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Maybe I can, if there is no question, I can also like say what I found as like the tensions in our work, no? So there is a lot of critique of first like introducing like anything which has a prefix, or just like which is annotated as universal, no? Like we kind of learn through time how dangerous, how like in that sense, like how aggressive and how imperial that could be. Then that also goes well with like the classification, no? Like bringing the categories, classification, especially in the libraries in that sense. So there is also in that sense the other side of the library, which is actually about not just access as in like getting there on the bookshelf, but also like having all of these proxies of the catalog. How do you group things, how you cluster, and all of these things. And there is tension there. And I usually try to say that the tension is in formalization. So how far we can formalize, how far we can introduce something which would allow for standardization, you know, so that things go together, even they are not like maybe even similar, but we kind of find the aspect under which we try to kind of like put them together. So that there is a big problem with that. But my argument is usually that when we want to do political struggles, we need to know like what is our ground and what is the infrastructure. So what I wanted to show in this presentation was like that these are our precarious, unstable infrastructures, the shadow libraries. And they became infrastructures because they relied on some of these aspects. So they relied on accepting that certain level of the formalization is necessary in order to build the infrastructure. After we have some infrastructure, the ground on which we try to base our struggle is somehow, if we make it fully elusive, if we make it kind of like, that's a strategy for something, for some struggles, and I totally like support that. But if you want to do digital network infrastructures with distributed or shared resources, I feel that certain degree of that is necessary. And I hope that we will like loosen it up in a way in the future more. But at the same time, it is, in my opinion, impossible to keep it just like in flux, just like fully flexible, just like kind of just like a listening, human listening other humans. It seems to me that that it is a goal, but we need to make some decisions. We need to say, this is what we do. We need to decide. It's in order to kind of make struggle happen.
Yeah, this is excellent. So just if I was to say, I agree with Milica when she said, you know, in a sense, you are showing us an example of, or something that is kind of close to what we are doing, especially when you talk about acknowledging divisions of labor, and also acknowledging or kind of focusing on the ground for struggle. So I would just say, if I could say something very briefly about unlearning, that we initially we were looking at Ariella Atulai's book, Potential History Unlearning Imperialism, but we also extended this to look at like kind of anarchist pedagogies of the beginning of the 20th century, which were focused on abolishing the divisions between like technical and technical or manual and intellectual labor, and these kinds of modes that get introduced in the institutions, like in the technical university, such as the one we're in. So in a sense, we're kind of trying to also revive or bring some of those questions back. So I think it's very interesting that you are really, when you add care to this infrastructure, digital infrastructure, you also perhaps do this kind of practice of unlearning. Perhaps that was slightly vague, but I think that's how I see it. Are there any other questions or comments for Marcell? Or any, I guess like I mean, I don't know if there's time for this, but I feel as if you're quite optimistic for the internet there was obviously this 90s utopian moment of the internet, which the internet is kind of really privatized, a fully privatized space. And you've also kind of outlined these areas where it's still functioning in this kind of utopian-ish way. But do you have like a kind of a sense of the future?
I feel that the crises in that sense are exciting, you know? And we just entered like, but not exciting as in, oh, I'm like so adventurous, I want to do scuba diving and things like that. I just think that when the crises are around, then being whatever, like going into nihilist direction is not the way to go, no? So in that sense, I feel that these are these are the kind of good, that's what reminds us what is good and what is not. So in that sense, like the crisis, for example, we didn't know that WordPress, which really allowed people to make quick websites, just to get with a very concrete example, not to go into Mediterranean Sea or like all climate change and things like, just like a very simple one from internet. In that sense, that's what you asked. Is like, we didn't know that they will be so unstable, because WordPress, I'm sure that a lot of you guys lost a number of projects because you didn't pay for the domain. Some programmer just is not answering your emails. So you have something in MySQL, but it's kind of like broken. So you cannot bring that website back and things like that. So these are the crises where a lot of technologists, or at least like few technologists, would try to say, okay, that didn't work. You know, like, so we know how it didn't work. We kind of, we could do more of education. We could do more of recognizing the maintenance work and things like that. We should say, you know, like we can plan better in that sense. But at the same time, there is a moment where you are like, okay, so maybe we can do it differently. You know? So in that sense, what I try to do with Sendpoints is to do it differently. So there is a number of components which are equally, it's the same like Ubu in 1996, but then the other components are only possible in last few years, you know, like, so it is a mixture of the new and the old, but it's in that sense, you make decisions which one you will use. So for example, the PDF print, it was not really possible to make it that in this elegant way. It's still not fully elegant because it's very experimental technology, but I wouldn't be able to do that And I doubt that anyone else would be able to do that like 4 years ago. No. So we have some window of time, for example, with this PDF feature, where we have it and others don't, like corporations don't, because it's still in experimental phase. So in 5 years from now, having PDF maybe won't be that kind of exciting, because Adobe will provide it everywhere. So you have it in Microsoft, Apple, blah, blah, blah. So PDF won't be that, but maybe not, we don't know. Then Git, for example, which proved itself as a technology for collaborative work on software, now for more than like 15 years, but in last 10 years, it really proved that it builds, it's decentralized. So it's a good piece of technology, no? And it also allows for much more autonomy than other technologies, no? So even GitHub is a huge Microsoft-owned part of the infrastructure, but the way how you can bring back, how you can take back anything from GitHub is like as a source code, things like that. It's very easy. There are like other parts which we can't, but there's a more like serving corporations. What I'm trying to do here is that map that there is certain kind of optimism which is here, and that optimism, I think, is here because some of the crises can be addressed, no? So that's what, but in terms of like optimism or not, like in general case, I don't know really, like, but again, we, even if technology wise, even if we are entering the phase in which internet will not be this like ubiquitous, like it won't be there 24/7. This is the technology we should build, no? So this technology tries to address also offline, online, so that most of the things work offline, like the same as if you are online, things like that. So that's the technology part. But how do we address other like crises? In that sense, I don't know. Like we struggle. That's we politicize. That's how we do that. And I think that political struggles can be also fun. We don't do that only for that. But if there is no fun at all, I think that it's also like it doesn't really worth it. You know? Like then we are just becoming the robots, nihilist robots.
I think that is a really wonderful place to end.
Yeah.
That really to kind of emphasize also the importance of fun in any struggle. Unless there are any final words. Milita.
Yeah, maybe joy. Sorry to maybe joy instead of fun.
Oh yeah, joy. That's better.
Yeah, I don't know.
But both.
I agree.
Yeah.
If you have to write it down, write joy, not fun.
Okay.
But fun works too. No, you laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Marcell. It's been a real pleasure, an honor that we're honored that you joined us. And we hope to kind of follow your work further in the future. And we are inspired. So thank you so much. And
thank you for inviting.
We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Marcell. And maybe next step to understand how we can start practicing, you know, like syllabus as a, you know, as conception of the pirate like care as a part of it.
I think that we got a lot of momentum with that, and it seems to me that there is quite some like on both sides organizing things, but also like for me developing technology. So I'm sure that one way or another we will meet when we get the second dose of and see what we can do.
Okay. This is great. Thank you so much.